Greetings Terrarians, Khaios here. In today's build tip video, I'm going to be showing you some tips and tricks for building natural looking trees. So when I get started, I like to kind of envision it in my head, and I'll try to show you how I'm doing that as best as I can in game, but I always start by doing the kind of skeletal structure of the tree. So kind of think of if I were to be building a dead tree, and actually I'm just going to build it on this hill here, just because. So for the skeleton structure, I kind of like to pick one direction that I want the tree to grow and kind of make an arc of the tree trunk in that direction. So I'm going to start on this side and just bring it up like this. And so the main body of the tree will be leaning a little bit that way, and then it's going to just curve, and I'm just going to make it look like it's going to lean a little this way afterwards. So this will be the main kind of arc of the tree. And so what I do is I just make this a little bit thicker, just to make it look like it could actually support leaves. So I'm kind of envisioning a tree that would only have leaves on this one branch. I know it kind of looks weird when you think of it like that, but that's just where I'm at this step in building the tree. So I'm making sure that it looks thick enough on the base to support the weight if I were to add some leaves to the single branch over here. Now I also want to have some leaves and other branches on the other side, so I'm going to stretch out the bottom of the trunk here on this side a little bit more to just offset that weight a little bit. And also when I add more weight to this side, just to keep the tree leaning the way it is, I'll need some more branches on this side. So for now I'm going to add a little bit more of a branch right here, and right now I've got a straight line going, and that's something that I try to avoid, heavy lines and patterns when it comes to building trees, just because it makes it look a whole lot less natural than it would if you were to just kind of make everything look a little bit more random or a little bit more hectic. Another thing that I try to avoid is symmetry. So right here I have an offset at the trunk of the tree, but it's kind of mirroring itself right here on this level. So I'm just going to raise that up one right here, just so that it's a little bit off-centered. And just because I have this pattern going here, I'm also going to just tweak that a little bit and bring that down. So I've dropped the pattern, and I've still got a relatively thick base for the tree, maybe even lower that one more right there. But it's not symmetrical or perfectly straight lines. So I'll come over to this side, and I have this little knob sticking out over here, and I'm just going to kind of build a branch coming out of that knob. And then I'm going to want the tree to be fairly full towards the top. I'm not sure exactly what I might call the standard kind of tree that I've kind of been making for years. It's probably mostly an oak, maybe. But I want it to be relatively full, so I'm just going to put some branches out here. I'll probably be knocking out a lot of these branches, but the reason why I keep them in early on is because I use them to visualize where the leaves are going to be. So I could see how full this tree is going to be in my head before I start placing leaves. And this is probably a pretty good start. So from here, depending on my mood, actually I'm not quite happy with how heavy this branch here looks. I'll just make it a little bit smaller. There we go. Depending on my mood, I'll either start shaping the wood with a hammer, or I'll start placing the leaves. And I think this time I feel like placing leaves. So what I'm gonna do is go to each of the branches at the tips and just kind of place a little bulb of leaves. Just a rough shape for now. So I'm just going to slope all of the branches, and I'm also going to slope all of the leaves, which I feel is a very important step to making the tree look nicely. To making the tree look nice. I will go ahead and time-lapse me hammering everything, but I'll give you a look here in just a second of what the leaves look like, or what the tree looks like before you hammer the leaves, just so you get a better idea of why I want to hammer all of my leaves. So here is what a lot of players might consider a completed tree. The bark, the tree itself looks quite nice, but a lot of players I see skip sloping the leaves. So just keep this image in mind. I'm going to speed it up and show you how much better it comes together once you slope these leaves. So now that we have all the leaves sloped, you can see that it's just much more of a natural look to it than all of the jagged square edges. It's a lot more work, and it takes quite a bit more time, but I think the outcome is worth it. So the next step that I go through when I'm building a tree is adding some living leaf wall to it, just to kind of make it look a little more full in the background. So what I try to do is mimic how the tree is shaped. I have this group of leaves here, and you see a lot of players will just surround it entirely with a leaf wall. And while it does look better than if you did no wall at all, it's just, to me, I feel like the better way to actually use these leaves is to kind of mimic how the tree is going to be shaped if you were to add another layer to the background, and just kind of fill in gaps from there. So there are points where it sticks out, but it's not going to be everywhere. And I try to make it make sense for the current design of the branches and the tree trunk and everything that we have in there. And I do like to leave some gaps in here like this. Not only do they let light go through, but just seeing the sky in there in general looks quite a bit better for me than something that's completely darkened out. So another detail once the background leaves are done that I like to add to the trees, just to make them feel like there's actually a little bit of light coming through and we don't have all these dark spaces, is just to hammer some holes around in the darkest parts of the leaves, just to bring in a spot of light. And we still leave some darkness just so we have some shading in there. Otherwise you might as well just use gem spark block or something. But I do like to bring in a little bit of light. Got to be careful around these center parts, and again, envision how the branches of the tree are going so that you don't put a hole for light in an area that there's supposed to be a branch, because then obviously you wouldn't have any light pouring through there anyway. And I do change things up. I don't just do half blocks for everything. I'll do various different kinds of slopes, just so that we have, again, no repeating patterns. And once I have those holes punched, you'll see this is an angular slope where we have a straight edge here, and then an angle here. If we place a living leaf wall on each of these straight edges, and again we have the straight edge here and here, you'll see that it fills in visually the gap without covering it in completely and making it dark again, like if I were to just place the wall in the middle. So I'm just going to go through and find these straight edges for each one of these holes. And now we basically have a tree done that looks quite nice. We've got a nice oak tree here. It didn't take too long. Now these types of trees do look best if you do not actuate them. That's just my personal taste, at least. The actuated wood is quite a bit darker, and I'm not as much of a fan of it for this style of tree. However, if you want to be able to walk through your tree, all we need to do is take out the bottom layer of the tree. And now a lot of people might just fill this in with living wood wall and just make it look like you're walking into the tree to get through, and that's totally fine. It's something you can opt to do. But another thing that you might consider doing is taking some living leaf wall and building kind of like a shrubbery that will be placed in front of your tree, that your tree might look like it's growing out of. And we're on a slope, so it kind of makes this shrub a little bit larger. But from here, all you really need to do is just take a hammer and knock out segments, or you can maybe even break a few blocks here and there, and just kind of make it look a little less rigid and kind of fake and straight edged. And just fill in that gap with some more of the leaf. And now we have a nice passageway through and around the tree. And again, if you just wanted to get real nitpicky about how it's looking, you could just tweak any aspect of it until you're completely happy with how the tree looks, as if it's coming out of the shrub. But say you didn't want to use the shrub. Say you wanted the tree to be actuated. Well, go ahead and actuate it. Not a big deal. Like I said, I prefer this type of tree to have a lighter branch. But if you like the darker one, go ahead and push it on into the background and you'll be able to walk through it with no problem. However, as you'll see here, let me just place a couple of more actuators right there because I missed those pieces of wood. There we go. We have a tree that's been actuated meeting a ground that hasn't been actuated, and they blend. So we get this really hideous straight edged line right here all the way underneath the tree. So the way that we can get rid of that is just by mining out the layer of wood where the ground meets the tree trunk. And then we just grab some living leaf wall. And no, I'm not going to tell you to plant another shrub. Grab some brown paint this time and just place that underneath. You could use a living wood wall if you want, but I just feel that the brown painted living leaf wall looks a little bit more natural. It's got this nice texture that doesn't have straight up and down lines, and because it has some curvature and some kind of jagged edges to it, it looks just a little bit more like what you might see at the base of a tree. So there we've already got a much better looking intersection of the ground and the tree. I'm just going to spread this grass on right over here. But also we have this hard line here that's none too appealing. So just like with the shrub, if you just knock out some segments and hammer some other segments, you can make this look a little bit more natural. and we'll just fill that in with living leaf wall that's painted brown until we have no more light coming through, just like that. And now we've got a actuated tree that looks much better when it meets the ground than when it's actually blending into the ground itself. And you can shape this intersection however you want. You can make it as small as you want or as big as you want. And that's my build tips and tricks for tree done. I do have more ideas for videos to show you guys different tree designs in the future. But for now, I hope you guys found this tutorial useful. If you did, be sure to leave a like and leave a comment on what kind of tutorial you'd like to see me do in the future. Now, I know you guys have been asking a lot for furniture tutorials, and that is coming up. I do have plans to make a build tip video for furniture, but that takes a lot more planning. There's a lot more to it than just slapping a tree together. So that will come when it's ready. Thank you all very much for watching. Please consider subscribing to my channel. I'll catch you all later. Happy building.